This review of Cadillacs and Dinosaurs may contain spoilers and coarse language. If neither of those bother you, then have fun watching and enjoying this review. The name caught your attention? Of course it fucking did. How can something as badass as Cadillacs and Dinosaurs not? Well, that's good that it did, because it has a very promising allure to it. Released by Capcom in 1993 after being based off the TV show of the same name, which is based off the comics not of the same name. Though, Xenozoic Tales is a pretty badass name too. It sounds promising, but that's not a guarantee of quality. So let's find out if a game can be as badass as fucking Cadillacs and Dinosaurs sounds. Starting with the story. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs takes place in the 26th century. Humanity sealed itself underground and popped back up after 500 years, with the hope that the pollution it caused, or more accurately, India and China caused, has gone away. Damn, being a superpower really got to their head. In that period of time, humanity advanced underground with the creation of geothermal energy plants, yet lost some things like knowledge of earlier time periods, so dinosaurs lost their original names like raptors and Tyrannosaurus rex. Oh yeah, the important thing, the dinosaurs. They're back! Not the movie, but they've come back to reclaim the planet as their own. But this stuff is set up for the actual game, though it's awesome stuff to learn about from secondhand sources like the show, and I think it helps make the game cooler. The true plot involves our four heroes who have been seemingly backed into a corner right at the start and are fighting their way out of the sunken New York City. They go to fight people that betrayed them, only to learn of a plot to take over Jack's garage while they were busy fighting them. Upon learning about this, they go and stop the people from taking it over, and also learn of a plot to fuse dinosaurs and man together as one disgusting chimera entity. You know what? Yeah, I can kind of relate to that. Can our heroes stop this mad professor from creating these disgusting abominations? The context for what's going on in the game is good. Though it is isolated to cutscenes, the visual storytelling of where our heroes are going and geographically matching up is wonderful, with a small map pointing out where they're going. As well, the cutscene art for the game is actually pretty enjoyable to look at, and the translation for it is surprisingly fun, with a lot of unique language choices. Like fuck! So with gameplay, this is where the real star is shining. Capcom has always been known for their wacky and fast-paced beat-em-ups, and this is no exception. With simple movement controls and double tapping for dashing, it all feels very responsive and very fluid to move around. You have two basic buttons for alternative moves. Jumping, which is primarily for dodging, air moves, and minor platforming. Then you have attacking, which is a robust button that has a lot of powerful context for it, with tons of unique variations of attacks. You also have abilities if you're close to enemies, like being able to grab them and throw them in specific directions. If you happen to smack both buttons at the same time, you'll do a giant powerful sweeping move that will get rid of any enemies in your way. However, it will cost you a little bit of life if you hit anyone, so don't abuse it. Or you can, ya madman. In the multiplayer of the game, you gain some unique abilities as well. Besides the fact that you have more people hanging out with you, you're also able to get close and do a super move by standing next to each other and tapping either button. However, there is also the chance that you can hit other players when you do specific moves. So make sure you guys aren't fighting over which side of the screen to be on, just don't fight each other. Of that, there are 4 different playable characters to choose from. Jack is the main protagonist and is overall a good pick. He's moderately fast, does good damage, does well with items, all around fun. His running attack is also unique because it's something that's on the floor instead of airborne, so he's not in the air like everyone else. Hannah is what the game calls good skill. She seems to be better with items and is pretty fast on the draw. Then you have Mustafa, who is just fast in general. A lot of his attacks seem to cover a lot of range because he uses his legs instead of his fists. He is also a pretty good pick. Then you have Mess, who's beefy but slow, and he can do a lot of damage very quickly if you know how to use him. I think Jack overall is my favorite character in the game. He's just overall good, and he has that unique sliding thing, which I like to abuse that. So, yeah, he's pretty fun. He's a pretty fun character. There's also a mechanic in this game that's hidden in plain sight unless the game wants to remind you, which is the time over. It is absolutely possible to actually run out of time when you're beating up people, and if you're too slow, then you just get a game over, I think. I don't know, I've never actually had it run out, so it just tells you to hurry up, so hurry up when you see it. With the enemies in this game come a slew of unique and fun baddies to deal with. There's regular, generic human enemies, poachers, fat dudes who drop health upon defeating them, and other variations such as human dinosaur hybrids and bikers. Dinosaurs are unique enemies because they can go around and hurt everyone, so while you can be in danger, so can your enemies. By ignoring them, they fuck off, but you can also attack them to return them to normal. Enemies can also wake up these dinosaurs and make them hostile, so that's something to also be aware of. The only real problem with enemies is that their types seem to be repeated just a bit too often, and there's not as many unique situations for them. There's good places that help add variety, like the underground, where there's a flamethrower that burns the enemies, or barrels chasing you down hallways, but those are few and far between. There's also a shit ton of weapons that you can use in the game, with wonderful results to them. There's both melee and firearms can double up as regular melee weapons when you're out of ammo with them. And man, that's a great touch, beating some guy with your gun. Oh, jeez. But using these weapons is cool too, since they really do help out a lot, and you can even keep them longer if you find some magazines and rounds for the guns. Both the melee and guns feel excellent to use on enemies. I have a lot of satisfaction when you use a shotgun, but that's my bias, man. I love shotguns. As per variety in beat-em-ups, there's also a variety of health pickups that you can obtain. There's a variety of different sizes to them, and you can get some from defeating enemies, specifically the fat guys. It's wonderful, isn't it? While not necessarily an item, the Cadillac of Cadillacs and Dinosaurs does show up in a few places, and Stage 3 you actually get to use it, and it's pretty fun. However, in that stage, only player 1 is in control. The other players just kind of sit there, so yeah, I hope you're pretty good at driving, because if you aren't, then your friends will make fun of you. Bosses are another thing entirely. While bosses take on the appearance of souped-up enemies, they have a lot of unique moves and movesets that make them stand out a lot. Phases are also a thing among bosses in this game, offering bosses that can really make more interesting fights by mutating more afterwards, but those are more at the end of the game. The only complaints I can give is that the boomerang boss is way too fast for what he is. He is an extremely powerful boss for that area. Like, look at how quick that sweep is. Jeez Lou fucking ease. Outside of him, the final boss is a wacky hardcore fight. While the game isn't exactly too difficult, the final boss definitely made me struggle a bit. The final boss has animations that match the rest of the game, meaning he can do attacks that seemingly come out in a frame, with very little reaction time for the player. It's also quite scary. That's very creepy looking. This also leads me to the difficulty for this game. The game itself with just a single person is shockingly fair. For an arcade beat-em-up, of course, it is still a challenging game, but it is pretty fair. On death, a barrage of rockets come down to clear the area of baddies, and you get a 1-up for every 500,000 points. It seems normal, but if you somehow die in this, besides the awesome game over screen, you also respawn with a rocket launcher. Yeah, a rocket launcher. I noticed that while playing this physically at the Galloping Ghost, it has a high score on top of the cabinet. But I managed to beat this score after I died just once due to the boost that little rocket launcher seems to give you. It's bizarre, but this game feels like it wants you to die. Put the quarter in for that little boost. While it's a common trope in beat-em-ups to make it so that the games are more difficult with more players, to keep it interesting, of course, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs has support for 3 players. This mode is seemingly scaled pretty well with multiple people, as it definitely does make some of the game a bit of a cakewalk. I definitely had a lot more fun with the final boss with my friend than I did alone. But you know, it's an arcade game, so if you don't really like it, just go to the options and change whatever you want. Yeah, playing through on hardest, I didn't really notice too much besides taking more damage, but other than that, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, just customize it however you'd like. Graphics for this game are sublime. While it seems like some in-betweens are missing for movement, that helps make the game a lot faster paced. The problem is that while the main characters don't have this detail, neither do the enemies. That means some enemies that have extremely powerful attacks basically have no wind-up to them and just go at it. That can make some bosses and enemies really frustrating to fight. By the way, notice how gory this game is? There's a lot of enemies that explode into gibs with weapons like grenades and rockets, but it's so damn satisfying. It's shocking that the game is this gory because I don't think the show was aimed for older audiences. Still, I don't mind and I doubt kids back then gave a shit. There's also some great details like water rumbling when you're in water, and with said rumbling helping you find hidden items that are underwater. Can't say there's much to complain about with the clarity of text, but fuck is the attention to detail great. I love the game over screen because you just deck this dude when you put a quarter in. Jack's garage even has a really great detail at the beginning. He actually has his name on it, so it is his garage. My favorite thing is at the end of the stage, whoever gets the final hit on the boss poses and says a funny one-liner. Always a magical touch. For the audio, this game sounds pretty good. Common of Capcom in the early 90s is that their iconic guitar riff that they used in all their damn games is also in this one too. The main theme for this game, which plays only in the first part of the first stage and the ending, is an outstanding and fun composition to listen to. However, the rarity of it being played is something that should be corrected. It's an awesome song, so I'm not sure why it doesn't play more. The sound effects for this game are really juicy. Punching and kicking are extremely powerful sounding and have a nice comic vibe to them. You know how older TV shows like the 60s Batman did sound effects? It sounds a lot like those, but it's a lot less pow, bam, woo. Well, not entirely. Voice acting is amazing in this game. While it's simple expressions and grunts for most of the time, the voices are clear and it's very easy to hear what they're saying. They have an extremely 90s tone to them.
Alright! That's good!
Go! It's wonderful, isn't it? So if Capcom handed me the title of producer, director, thing, the guy in charge, what would I change? I think the first thing I'd address is how much damage some of the bosses give you. Specifically the final boss. To add on to that boss and others, bigger attacks need to have more in-between frames and be a bit slower. It's so jarring to see these instant attacks on much bigger characters when they should have a much bigger wind-up. As well, the boomerang boss in Stage 4 is a bit too difficult. I think I'd at least give him a bit of a wait time before attacking. Enemy variety is also something that can be improved upon. While I do believe that the human-dinosaur hybrids come in at the right time, I feel like there could be even more hybrids. We only have one that kind of looks like a Blanca clone, and then we have the mutated boss one, and that's about it. If we had more mutants that were based off of other dinosaur types like pterodactyls and triceratops, I think that could be more interesting. A good change with music is to make the actual theme song play more throughout the game. It's a shame that it's only played right at the start and then you never hear it again. That whole section is 30 seconds at most, and Capcom didn't bother thinking about putting it in other places. It really is quite silly when it's such a masterpiece song. If anything, I'd just make it so that it played through the entirety of Stage 1. Because all the other songs in Stage 1 also play at other parts of the game, so why not? Smaller things include making characters jump into the right seats of the Cadillac during Stage 3. It's confusing if player 1 is driving and 2 is in the driver's seat. And I think with that, that's about all I'd change. So, to put it bluntly, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs is fucking awesome. This is a high-octane beat-em-up that you should absolutely play. Multiple times. Use as many quarters as you can, because it's a fucking masterpiece. However, I would recommend you play with your bros. You know why? Because this is a bro-op. Not just co-op, bro-op. This is where you need your buddies with you. Or with other people that you love. Even my girlfriend got a kick out of it. Oh, you got it. Yeah, you got it. In short, it's one of my favorite beat-em-ups. Possibly my favorite. I don't know. I need more experience with that genre. But it's definitely a great fucking game. If you're into more high-paced action, I'd also recommend checking out my game, Necrolepsy. It's an action platformer, so it's just a little bit different, but it will definitely fill the same void of fun. So I'd highly recommend you check out Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. It's as awesome as the title, so there, I said it. It's that good.